The presidential election has been the major talking point this week as different stakeholders have given their take on the outcome of the electoral process. Some have praised the results, while others have condemned the electoral process, calling it a sham. However, the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, would celebrate the outcome regardless of the different views by the electorate and opposition parties, as the party's candidate, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, emerged victorious in Saturday's election. Joining us on the show this morning to discuss the presidential election is Bishop Matthew Kukah of the Sokoto Diocese. Good morning and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning, Ayo, and greetings from Sokoto.
Thank you.
Good morning, Bishop Kukah. Well, I'm sure, given the nature of your engagement with Nigeria, with our community, you must have been following the developments within the polity. What is your take? Do you think that this has been a free, fair, credible election, and that people have been objecting? Persons like former President Olusegun Obasanjo are just engaged in busybody affairs, and the country should just be allowed to move on. But even now, the other political parties, at least 3 of them, we can confirm, are saying that they will go to court. Will they get justice? If justice is the issue in this particular instance.
Well, thank you, Ruben. I have been more than just a spectator. First of all, I did cast my vote, and so my investment in the process is more than just an emotional investment. And secondly, as a convener of the National Peace Committee, we watched diligently to see that the principles enunciated in the signing of the peace accord are implemented. And so, first of all, let me commend the key political actors, because despite where we find ourselves in now, I think that on balance, Nigerians must agree that the presidential candidates did conduct themselves in a manner, in a way that brought a lot of respect to politics and political processes. And for me, as a citizen, they deserve our commendation, because we didn't experience the usual recriminations and so on and so forth. A lot of like the chairman of the National Peace Committee indicated when he addressed Nigerians, the infractions, the foul language came largely from spokespersons of the different parties. And even up till now, I still want to call on the spokesperson to be more matured and to be more restrained and to stop crying more than the bereaved. I know that they are investors in the process, but the way they talk to Nigerians and the way they address the issues going forward is important. Secondly, you quoted the Bible when you spoke about the fact that Jesus wept. Well, I think since the Bible is my vademecum, and you went to the Bible, let me make a point of correction. John chapter 11, verse 35, that's where we are told that Jesus wept. But if you read the Bible in 8 verses down, in John chapter 11, verse 43, actually Jesus went from weeping as a human being to raising Lazarus from the dead. So, but to come back and answer your question, I think that it is within the limit, the boundaries of political processes and the letter and the spirit of the peace accord, that the people who feel aggrieved must have a right. And, this is what democracy is all about. And I think something very fantastic has happened in this process. Let's not focus just on how the elections went, but there are little things that I think we need to pick along the road and pay attention to. First of all, for the first time in the history of political processes and people going to court, Nigerians should not forget that this is the first time that we are not having just a sitting president versus an opposition politician threatening to go to court or quarreling with the results of the elections. But this time now, we are having a triangular battle. So it's not just one person against the others, as it has always been the case. You had Waziri of Adamawa Alhaji Atiku articulate his views very clearly and very eloquently. You've also heard Peter Obi say the kind of things that he has said. We've not heard much from Kwankwaso, but either way, the point I'm making is that the opening up of the political space, which is one of the major victories that this process has scored, should not be forgotten, because this, if we succeed in guiding this process through, will be widening the political space, and political competition subsequently can become freer, fairer, and much more just. So, again, to answer your question directly, it is within the boundaries of their authority to accept the process, and as we said in the peace accord, the political actors signed on to accepting the process as long as it is free, fair, and credible. And if any of the actors felt at any point that this process was not free, fair, and credible, as the two contestants, or as the contestants have said, it is within their rights to do what they've done. And I think that this has made will make the outcome of this election even more exciting and more credible, whichever way the process finally goes. And I think all of them are saying basically the same thing. If the person holding the prize now really deserves the prize, it will be better for it. If the prize deserves to go somewhere else, the process will be better for it. And I think this is what the late President Yaradua himself said. He said, I'm holding a tainted prize, and because this prize is tainted, he didn't say I can't drop it. I will set a mechanism in place to make sure that this process, is improved. And I'm happy and humbled by the fact that I served as a member of the Electoral Reform Committee, and I know what we went through. And I think some of the things that were put on the ground are things that are now bringing us to where we are today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Bishop Kukah. A few things you said, and I'd like to continue from there, or perhaps to dig a bit deeper. The presidential candidate of the PDP, Waziri Atiku Abubakar, has described the election process, or the elections on Saturday, as grossly flawed. The presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, has said it's going to go down in history as one of the most controversial elections in Nigerian history. In your estimation as a stakeholder, and also, as you have said, being a member of the committee, peace committee, and then also the electoral reform cause, what is your evaluation of Saturday's election, especially the role that INEC played? Do you think there are lessons to be learned, especially as we have another election coming up in a few days, in 8 days' time? What do you think INEC should have done better? Was the election truly free, fair, and credible?
Look, I mean, what I think and what I feel are immaterial, and what anybody thinks, none of those things are now important. Whether INEC did a good job or didn't do a good job, most of that is no longer necessary, because the decision taken yesterday by Mr. Obi, Mr. Peter Obi, and the Waziri of Adamawa, put paid to any form of speculation. So, let me say, human interference has been taken out of this process. All we now need to do is to sit down and watch and see how that process is going to play out. And I think that what Dr. Obi said is actually, and I think you yourself made the point, its significance lies in the fact that those on the barricades, those who actually went away bloodied, injured, and those who feel so psychologically and physically drained can now be told that, hold on, there is a process we are pursuing. And I think that the greatest challenge for us, political participants, political actors, the greatest challenge for us is how we set our country on the path of process. This, for me, is what is most important. So, as I said, as for what I think and how INEC did what INEC had to do, it's really not important what I think. Now the courts are going to test the elasticity of the argument that INEC may make about how it conducted this process. So I think that now that we are where we are, we really shouldn't spend our time again speculating, because we now have a machinery and a process in place, which hopefully and prayerfully will deliver to us what we expect. And I'm also happy that the people who are approaching the Supreme Court are also not weighed down by the existing prejudices and the feelings of anxiety that people have about the Supreme Court. Look, whether we like it or not, we are not going to invent another court. We have to. Terrible things have happened. But again, I think, Wazir of Adamawa made the point very clearly. He went to court 11 times, didn't have to see any judge, because the general feeling is that we often confuse one bad apple with the rest of the apples in the basket. The Supreme Court remains the legitimate body to interpret the spirit of the law and even its letter. And we cannot invent another Supreme Court. And if the actors trust that process, let us also, line up behind them. As for next, the second leg of your question is even more important. People have complained about the low voter turnout. I think that, if we have any lessons to learn at all, it is that hopefully on Saturday, those who have their PVCs buried somewhere will have to start digging the ground to find them. Because right across, the board, I suspect that on Saturday we are going to see people seeking to either consolidate what they perceive they gain, or seeking to claim what they thought, maybe through their carelessness, they lost. So we're going to see a much more robust, process on Saturday. The only thing one can say is that we just hopefully again pray that INEC will learn from the mistakes it may have committed last week and ensure that when people appear to cast their votes, the voting materials arrive in good time and that all obstacles are cleared on the path of ordinary people, so that this process is seen to be free, fair, and credible. I mean, going to cast a vote should not be something that you should write your will before setting out to go and cast a vote. So husband goes, husband expects to come, wife expects husband to come back. Young people go out to vote, they expect to come back home. It shouldn't be a journey of anxiety. So I think and I hope that next Saturday's the elections on the 11th should help us, to consolidate whatever gains we have made and to correct whatever needs to be corrected.
Okay, Bishop Kukah, please remind me in case I forget. Today, the Supreme Court, March the 3rd, is going to take a decision on another matter about the redesign of certain Naira denominations. And I would like to find out how the bishop has been managing with Naira notes and financial inclusion. But that's another matter. If I forget, I will want you to comment on that, how you've been surviving. But the question to ask you, you talked about spokespersons. And there are many Nigerians who will say that, look, in terms of strategy, is the National Peace Accord Committee thinking of including spokespersons in the signing of the accord? Because while you praise the principals, the spokespersons who were told by General Abdulsalami Abubakar were responsible for more than 40% of the vitriol, hate speech, disinformation, chaos, confusion, pre-election. They have not changed, even post-election. Secondly, you have said, yes, we should all have faith in the Supreme Court. Yeah, Mr. Peter Obi said that much. Waziri Atiku Abubakar said that much. But as a voter, since you said you voted, do you believe that Nigeria has decided? Do you believe that the outcome reflects the wishes of Nigerian people or even the result from your own polling booth? That's a personal question now. Your personal observation, not about legalism or what the candidates have said.
Well, Ruben, you're not being fair to me. One, you have money, which I don't have. Secondly, you are a lawyer, and I'm not a lawyer. But on the money thing, I think really it's the state we are in now, this is really not what we expected to be. And I suspect, I hear people complain loudly about the fact that about low voter turnout. Excuse me. And they may be right, but we must not ignore the psychological feeling of defeat and powerlessness that people feel. I mean, yesterday I called a parishioner of mine, whose husband is not very well, and I was just asking how he was. And And I said, look, I haven't seen you people for it. And she said, the woman said to me, said, Bishop, do you know that even to enter Keke now, I don't have money to enter, to go from here to the market. The situation, I mean, the impact of all this psychologically on ordinary Nigerians is pretty serious. And again, I would have thought that by now, government would have done all that is humanly possible to mop up resources to alleviate the sufferings and pains of people. Because you see, all this trust deficit, we are saying over 90 million people went to, sign on, for this process. And we are supposed to have voted. It didn't work out that way. Why did it not work out that way? I've often said Nigerians have earned a right to be cynical, about how to invest emotionally in the Nigerian state. And ordinary Nigerians deserve to be praised and commended for their resilience, for their long-suffering and painful experience with governance and government processes. Indeed, it is the manipulation of the judiciary by the politicians that is making ordinary citizens feel the way they feel, about the judicial processes. But otherwise, I mean, we have some of the best lawyers in the world. So again, I mean, whatever the Supreme Court rules, the Supreme Court is not going to put money in the pockets of ordinary Nigerians. It is for the government to find a way to end this nonsense. I'm sorry to say, but I mean, that is what it is. In the final analysis, do people have food on the table? In the ordinary and in the final analysis, does this government or do people really appreciate the sufferings that ordinary Nigerians are going through? I mean, you drive in front of a bank and you just see people, it's as if people have become refugees. People who have money in those banks and there's nothing they can do about it. So Nigerians deserve commendation. Even the 22 million people that turned out to vote deserve commendation. Those are the ones that had the means. So if we don't fix some of these social and humanitarian issues, it will be too difficult to convince Nigerians about their commitment to such things that are as abstract as casting a vote, especially when they are seeing no measurable returns. As to how I feel, look, where I cast my vote, I didn't have a problem. I'm not an election monitor. I've read quite a good number of the reports. But again, the only thing we can do is to say, look, the people who participate, the people who participated, the people who got bloodied, the people who were in the field of play, it is how they feel and what they feel that is important. So if they feel aggrieved and injured, I am more than happy to line up behind them. So I cannot stand on my own and say these elections were free, they were fair, they were credible, if those who actually participated feel otherwise. But from the point of view of my polling booth, I didn't go around the whole of Sokoto. I didn't go outside Nigeria. I'm not an election monitor. But from the point of view of what I experienced, in my own polling booth, which is not far from my house, the elections were largely, we were all talking and we were all laughing and so on. In fact, there was an old man. There were two old men in front of me. And when I asked one of them to step forward, he stepped back and said, no, go forward. And I said, no, he's an old man. We were speaking in house. I said, Muslim. So I said, no, you go. He said, no, Bishop, go. He had them calling me Bishop. He said, go. I said, no. And then he insisted. But the man who was in front of us was deaf and dumb. We were talking, making gesticulations and laughing. He went on to vote. All of a sudden, this old man pulled me aside. He said, look, I don't want to go after this man because we are from the same community. You see him, that deaf and dumb man is a dangerous person. I don't want to vote after him because he will be looking at how I'm going to vote. So he'll go back and tell the community how I voted. For me, that is even an improvement in the process that, I mean, it's an act of rebellion, of sorts. So different things happen. And no matter what we say about these elections, we can't cancel the fact that Nigerians have become more energized. Even the fact that we are contesting this process so vigorously is a plus for democracy. It's not like before. When people tell you to go to court, it was with a smug feeling of arrogance. You can go, we will meet you in court. When people say they are going to meet you in court and they speak with such arrogance, all they are saying is that we have already bought up the court, so you can go to court, nothing is going to happen to us. I've always believed in court processing. In 2007, when General Buhari lost to Yaradua, a lot of people were saying, Buhari said he was going to go to court. And people were saying, no, you can't go to court. Northerners, prominent Northerners were saying, look, you are a Muslim. Both of you are from the same state. You are both Muslims. You are cousins. Why will you take your brother to court? I remember, I don't know if anybody did, but I wrote an article. It is still there in print. in which I encourage Buhari to go to court, because I say going to court is not about brotherhood, it's not about friendship, it's not about blood. It will strengthen the process. So for me, this is something I believe in, and I'm not prepared to stay back and quarrel with the Supreme Court or any court, for that matter. I'd rather give them the benefit of the doubt. And I also think that the Supreme Court or all the judges are also human beings. They're going to the market with the rest of us now. So the more we have this this vocalization of our resentment, the more they themselves will know, the consequences of not responding to the wishes of ordinary people.
Well, the Supreme Court today clearly has a major assignment. They had fixed February 3 as the day when they would deliver their judgment in the matter between the states and the federal government with regard to the CBN policy of Naira redesign. And today, yes, we have that being thrown into the mix. But I ask you about the spokespersons. In the future, will the National Peace Accord Committee adjust its strategy to talk to these spokespersons, many of whom, all of whom, in fact, are your friends?
Well, everybody is my friend. I'm a friend of saints and I'm a friend of sinners. My pastoral boundaries are limitless. But look, I don't think that's a solution to the problem, because in Nigeria, when there is a problem, you set up a committee. When there's another problem, you set up a committee to examine what the other committee recommended. We don't need to expand the work of the peace, the signing of the accord to include spokesperson, because spokesperson are what they are appointees. Now, the peace accord is actually for people who are participating in the process. But I hear you. I think that what we need to do, and again, one of the things we recommended, at the Justice Uwe's committee was this whole question of the two critical things. One, we recommended that there should be a court dealing with these processes, so that even if you are a spokesperson, being a spokesman does not give you the right to abuse. And these people are behaving as if they have received licenses to be foul-mouthed, to speak disrespectfully to people. There is what you call decorum. Really, there is an old man now in Jos Plateau State. His name is Alaji Yaya Kwande. He published his biography, and I was reading the biography. One of the things he said was that the reason why he and his cousin decided they must go to school was that they wanted to learn how to abuse in English. It stuck with me. It's as if, when you are choosing a spokesperson, that is actually your messenger. And there is a sense in which the political actors also must take full responsibility, fairly and squarely, for the nature of the messengers that they choose to deliver their messages. Because in very many respects, the way and manner that some of these spokespersons conduct themselves puts a lot of people off. So they're actually costing you more. And I think that, in my view, they have nothing to do with the signing of the peace accord, but everything to do with keeping to the boundaries of decency and treating people and treating those who don't agree with them with the respect that they deserve. It's not too much to ask. And ordinarily, I think these people are all gentlemen. So you don't simply change a jersey because you become a spokesperson and then, develop this kind of toxic language that doesn't respect people and doesn't respect processes.
All right, final question, and we just have a limited time to respond, but I must ask you, because last month you granted an interview where you said that in 62 years history of this nation, no president had come into power prepared. So all of them had come unprepared, and you cited your reasons and examples. Looking at the president-elect, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he had released an 80-page manifesto on the race to becoming president. Do you think this is the one president who's coming into power prepared?
Look, I can tell you one thing for free. Luckily, I know all the presidential candidates, and I also know their their vice presidential candidates on a one-to-one basis. I think that whoever among these people ends up as president of Nigeria is more than eloquently prepared. Their body language, their communication skill, their own experiences, a lot of, like I said, personally, I feel elevated, by the quality of discourse and the nature of the issues that were introduced into our conversation. I'm just hopeful that, whatever happens, no matter how fully prepared you are, as I've often said, item shifts during flight. The challenge for us, for anybody is that, yes, people know the things you know, are different from when all these political actors now crowd on you, and the Nigerian president is so severely circumscribed that he cannot choose his team, because it is, like I keep saying, it is the governors of the states that send those they want to be made ministers. Very often, the governors may not necessarily send you somebody that has the best qualifications. So, in the final analysis, president is president. He may not be able, he may have all the best of intentions. And I believe every president has always had the best of intentions. It is the quality of the people you have around you that is important. And I hope that should Achiwaju, continue, should he win, I believe he's eminently qualified, because he's been on the trenches from the beginning of the struggle against military dictatorship. But as you had, Atiku comes with a lot of experience and exposure. Peter Obi, no less. So their eloquence suggests very clearly that all of them have prepared themselves. So, and whatever happens, the quality of our own collective engagement, it's also important for keeping the government on its toes. So we are making progress, measurable progress for that matter. And one of the greatest things that happened in this election, even the agitation of young people to say, look, we suffered and we're not going to watch any of this go, this way. I believe that even Dr. Peter Obi must have been persuaded by the kind of things he saw and the emotion that he saw from the people who invested in him. So I believe that, there are good things happening for Nigeria. Hopefully and prayerfully, in the next 2 elections, Nigeria should, we should attain an equilibrium.
Well, thank you very much, Bishop Matthew Hassan Kukah, the Catholic Bishop of the Sokoto Diocese, for joining us on the morning show today. Thank you very much indeed.